Well, as you know, Michele is a native here of our great state of Minnesota. And I've been a fan for a long time. And, our values sync. You think about my background as coming from nothing, literally, the streets of Harlem, and then later in a trailer park in Oklahoma. And just like a lot of people, worked hard, went to school, and experienced the American dream. And not ashamed to admit it. It just really resonated with her personally, and we got to know each other even more, and respected each other from that perspective.
Well, I think she's already paying great dividends for you. I think her move from NBC Sports and the #1 television show in America to work on your campaign is quite an endorsement, and I'm sure has added some energy and attention to your campaign to be governor of Minnesota.
Well, it's surely needed. There's what's been happening in our state for the last 2.5, 3 years. It's not who we are. And so, Michele brings a lot of good energy and attention to a campaign that's rooted in everything we believe in about our country. And I'm not ashamed to say it. Again, starting from my background of where I grew up, served our country as an Army officer, earned 3 degrees, and even a graduate degree from the University of Michigan. The system works, and we have in our state Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, where the rioting, the looting, and all of that started and spread across the country, and we have a weak governor that allowed that to happen. We have 2 years of horrific crime that we've never had before. It's time for leaders to step out of the shadows and take charge, and that's what I've done.
Well, and I want to get to that because I went to your website and started reading up on you, and man, you're putting it out there. This show is called Fearless. We're always looking for fearless soldiers, and you certainly seem quite fearless. But for right now, I just want to stick to Michele a little bit more in terms of her fearlessness, in terms of walking away from such a high-profile job and a job that paid her a lot of money to get involved in the political arena. And then yesterday on Tucker Carlson's show and the stuff she said previously on The View, you and her align a lot on race and just how the left seems to be trying to roll us backwards, and you and Michele are trying to no, let's push forward. America's narrative on race had been going a very positive direction, and the left seems determined to roll all of that back. She talked about her kids in the school system, where color is being focused on and kids are being divided up based on their racial groups. You've got 5 kids. I'm sure all this stuff resonates with you as well. Could you talk about how you and Michele kind of align along racial lines?
Well, it's interesting. We didn't even coordinate the whole racial, lines and how people being treated. This is just core, natural to our gut and to our core and our values. In fact, it used to be the way all Americans used to be. Jason, what I tell people, and it shocks people because we hear the opposite so much, is that this is the least racist period in our country's history. My parents and grandparents would have loved to have grown up in the America that I grew up in. We rarely talk about that issue. And I tell people the biggest issue that we have, the disparities we have, are less to do with racial and more to do that nearly 80% of our children are growing up in fatherless homes. I'm not talking about divorces. I'm talking about never had a father in the home. And we have to look at the magnitude. I call it a cultural genocide. When I was 5 years old, Martin Luther King was assassinated. At that time, nearly 80% of children born in the black community were born to 2-parent families. Today, it's nearly 80% fatherless homes. That's a cultural, without one attempt to do a national initiative to reverse the trend. And what I've learned, because I went to Harlem to visit my mother every summer coming out of school from Oklahoma in the trailer park to visit my mom in Harlem, everything got worse. Everything got worse. And the politician, Charlie Rangel, that's there for 47 years, they got wealthier and the community got poorer. And perpetual poverty is not what This is what this American dream and this American experiment is about.
Kendall, you have, particularly for a black politician, seem pretty outspoken. You call out Ilhan Omar, Keith Ellison, the current governor, and for I think you're arguing they mishandled their reaction to the George Floyd tragedy. And I think I certainly believe what happened to George Floyd was wrong, but the reaction to what happened to George Floyd, wrong as well. And I think politicians look to exploit it and seize power rather than try to bring communities together.
Well, Jason, I couldn't agree more, but just one correction. I'm not a politician. I'm someone that's stepping outside the political mainstream. I'm a leader who says enough is enough. We need to get adults involved, patriots, people that love the country involved to help turn our country around. We had two events that happened in Minneapolis. The one horrific event that you mentioned that happened to George Floyd. That was one incident of a crisis of humanity, if you will. The second incident happened was a totally political incident. You know, we were an epicenter for a political movement where defund the police, BLM, the rioting and the looting, all was the epicenter here, and it's cascaded all across the country. What we're going to do in Minnesota is say that, guess what? You know, there's no better person to be an ambassador for that idea that the American dream still works than Kendall Qualls as our next governor. Not because of the color of my skin. It's because where I started my life, the storyboard of my life, the faith that I have in God, and that the system works. It works. And I want to give our people a sense of hope that they can achieve their dreams. It takes work and effort, but it can happen in this country like no other country.
It's certainly, you know, my story as well. And you know, Michele talked about this like yesterday, I think, in her interview with Tucker Carlson. Is like, why aren't we talking about the progress we made and how to build on it, rather than everybody hop in their rearview mirror and talk about what happened 100 years ago, 60 years ago, 80 years ago? Why is the conversation so and I don't, well, I just used the word now, I'm not going to apologize for you, but why is it so backwards rather than looking forward?
So, Jason, here's what I've learned, and I don't know if you come to this point as well. This is not a disagreement on the issues of what happened in the history to where we are now. This is an issue around political power, the lust for power. Because if they can keep us divided, keep us ignorant, they can remain in control. This is really not different from human history. If you study world history and human history, 13th century Europe and Asia, you had the very, very small elite at the top at the expense of everyone else. If you go to our inner cities, that's exactly what you have. Maxine Waters lives in a $6 million mansion outside of her community. It's just like that in every major city in this country. And, you know, I escaped that. And I'm here to help people get out of it and just warn everyone else. That's what they want to do, is divide and fear so they can remain in control.
Well, Kendall, we wish you luck. Appreciate you taking the time. You got an awesome chairwoman, co-chairwoman running your campaign. We'd love to have you back as the campaign matures and develops, and we'll be rooting for you here in Nashville.
Jason, love your show. Love the work you're doing. God bless you. And thanks for having me on.
Thank you.